As the second trial starts, the arena becomes a place of slaughter. While most candidates freeze in panic, our MC stands calm against the wall, looking like a doctor inspecting a corpse, only to be shocked when Uniel twists away from the strongest fighter's deadly slashes, because he has already learned the deadly patterns by studying the bodies left behind. Arnold taunts him on purpose, pushing Wu Gang to rush in for a killing blow, but in that split second, Arnold dodges and drives his short sword into the weak spot in his neck that his grandfather taught him. As the story opens, our narrator tells us how his grandfather found him frozen in the snow, pulled him to safety, and gave him the warm name Bu Uniel. The old man stepped forward to take him in and ended up becoming his grandfather. The old man, an undertaker, taught Buniel the trade with such passion that he even called the boy a gift from heaven. But their peaceful days ended one night when the grandfather woke Uniel up, sensing something terrible in the air. He proposes they play their usual game of acting like the dead and see who can do it best. His grandfather promises him the clothes and sword of his dreams if he can last until sunrise, and An is so happy to hear this that he jumps into the game without a second thought. He slips into his small hiding closet while his grandfather tells him to stay safe until morning. Then the old man closes the door, pulls out his sword, and steps outside to fight the enemy waiting in the dark. It turns out the two know each other, and the enemy calls the old man Bu Yang, the famous seven-branched demonic blade. The enemy mocks Jianying for trading his spot in the demonic palace to become nothing but trash in the woods. The man lets his fury rip onto Jianying, yet Jianying easily blocks the first blow and warns him that becoming an undertaker was about redeeming his past mistakes, not turning into trash. Jianying tells the man he's ready to give his life, but asks they move the fight elsewhere so no innocent people get hurt. The guy agrees but tells Yan to stop thinking about him running away. Moments later, Unshal couldn't stay hidden in the closet any longer and had to step out. Even though he desperately wanted the promised gifts, he couldn't let himself catch the cold. Unsal looks around, surprised that his grandfather isn't there, since he is usually always around. He steps outside the house and spots something wrong with the ground. And that's when he realizes something isn't right. He rushes wildly into the forest, only to find his grandfather dying against a tree, blind and armless. Emil dashes to his grandfather, his mind buzzing with a flood of questions. Tears streaming down his face, he asks his nearly dead grandfather what happened, and all the old man could do was apologize before telling him he was about to die and begging him not to become an undertaker. He tells Uniel to stop seeking revenge, but O'Neill screams in refusal, saying he can't forgive those who hurt Yin Yang. Solo tells Jianying that he'll only drop his plan for revenge if he's willing to die right there with him. With his life fading away, Jianying reaches out to Uniel for one final request. He pushed him to run far away before he crashed down and died. Jianying tells Uniel how much he loved every single moment they shared. Unsol watches in horror as his grandfather passes away in a sea of blood, then carries Jianying's body home while burning with hatred and refusing to listen to the old man anymore. He studied the body and, using what the old man taught him while he was alive, realized both arms were lost at once, letting him reconstruct the exact moment of the attack and visualize the entire tragedy, down to every eye and scar. Once he pieced everything together, he knew only the demonic faction could have pulled off that move, which Uniel confirmed was the Tianyu yoga technique after seeing the hidden weapon in Jianying's back that fired multiple projectiles at once. He also saw that Jianying's skin under the tongue and around the nails was the wrong color, a clear sign of poison, which helped Uniel realize the attacker was a member of the demonic faction, who knew the Tianyu yoga technique and carried a powerful weapon that delivered the deadly toxin. With no one else to blame, Uniel vows to find the one person who hurt his grandfather. Without delay, Uniel leaps into his quest for revenge and quickly signs the paper that sets him on his path. As he signs the papers, one of the instructors yells for him to slap that stamp down instantly. But Uniel leaves him speechless by ripping open his thumb to seal the papers with his own blood, driven by a vow of revenge for his grandfather's death that he refuses to break. This is exactly why he's entering the contest, viewing it as his first move toward revenge in a world where the Murim is ruled by opposing forces that keep each other in balance. The Murmurim Alliance guides the Orthodox sects because they fight for justice. While the strange cults at the Demon Palace worship raw power instead of doing what is right, the traditional groups have finally decided to take the lead after years of keeping things in balance. This path birthed 18 martial masters, champions dedicated to the greater good. Scared by the danger, the Demon Palace rushed to grow stronger. To make this happen, they hatch a wild plan to gather 10 gifted young people and train them in the forbidden arts of the demonic sect. To make it interesting, they throw away their pasts and jump into the contest, which drew a flood of eager young men to the Demon Palace, including O'Neill, who felt the dark pressure of the crowd around him. He realizes that one of them probably belongs to the man who killed his grandfather. Since Uniel's opponent is a master, he knows he must become a martial master himself to stand any chance of winning. That is exactly why he is driven to become one of the 10 demon masters, so he can gain the power he needs to finally face his enemy. Soon, a giant man who looked terrifying stepped out to talk to the demon masters and introduced himself as head instructor. The guys are totally shocked when Hai reveals who he is, and it turns out he's quite famous because of his amazing work. They're here to spot the absolute strongest demons from every sect, because only those who survive their dangerous tests will get to join the elite group of 10 demon masters. For the first test, he says the Demon Palace martial artists will check their bodies, and as the guys heard the news, they started complaining because they weren't expecting a trial when they thought the competition would be much harder. The marshals shake off their worries and examine their own bodies to see if they are strong enough. Meanwhile, those with heavy bodies cheer and feel relieved because they automatically move on to the next round. Instructor Jingak steps right up to Unil to take a close look at his body. The instant his hand touches his skin, he realizes Unil is gone. He wonders why Unil even joined, but the scary killing intent coming off her tells Jingak that letting her go to the next round would be a disaster. Because of this, he stops Unil from passing through, and Unil isn't even surprised. He already knows he can't pass because he spent his whole life handling dead bodies, so he doesn't have a living form to try it with. But Unil is sure they haven't reached the finish line yet. Later, the instructor announces that the first round is done, and one of the boys explodes with rage, shouting that the rules are unfair. He wonders why they even bother holding a contest when the only thing that really matters is how strong you are. Hyok then tells the kid that he knows nothing. Hi, he says, the most important thing to remember when learning martial arts is that your muscles and bones are what really matter. Hi teases the guy for failing such a basic test even after they open their door wide, but the lad insists he deserves a chance, only for Hi to reply that he has nothing to fear because the second trial is coming and he intends to choose those who can learn martial arts despite their weak bodies. Hi wastes no time shouting that they've reached the second round. It's a shocking twist. In the second round, they must fight each other until only one survivor remains. Most of the guys are shocked by the order, but the overexcited kid from earlier doesn't hesitate to act, his eyes already locked on his target. He instantly grabs a spear and throws it at Unil with all his might, only to discover too late that he has missed his mark. The spear stabbed the man in red, standing next to him, who turned out to be the attacker's rival. The guy in red screams in agony as he hits the ground, coughs up blood, and then passes away. Blood splatters across Unil's face as he stares in shock at the man lying motionless in a pool of his own, having just been killed by a spear. With just a quick look, Unil knows the guy was stabbed in the heart but missed his ribs, proving the attacker Wang is super fast. Wang starts bragging now that he has defeated his opponent. From his spot, Hyuk realizes Wang moves fast but lacks common sense, leaving him disappointed and convinced that these guys are just fools. Jing nods in agreement, knowing that acting like a threat in such a place would only turn everyone into hunters right behind you. He still thinks this move will shock the other racers into taking the deadly game seriously. Before you can blink, the arena descends into chaos and becomes a place of mass slaughter. While the younger boys, unused to seeing death, begin to panic, Hai and Jinguk spot one of them suddenly acting cool. He's pressed tight against the wall, completely unfazed by the mess tearing things apart right in front of him. He watches Aniel stay calm in the middle of the chaos, which makes him decide he was wrong to call them all fools. Aniel stays calm, thinking the others are fools for letting fear of death take over, since his only true mission is to survive, not to kill. Unchul realizes he can only survive if he thinks clearly and acts without emotion. Unil drops to the ground to touch the bodies and find out how they passed away. While everyone else is in chaos, one guy with a long weapon spots Unil standing out, while Anil checks the dead bodies to figure out how they died, which makes the Watcher furious and throw his weapon at Unil, missing his head by a hair and smashing the box on Unil's back. The guy laughs at Unil and teases him about the box he's carrying, wondering what's inside while Unil acts like a monk. It turned out the box held birthday gifts from his grandfather, so smashing it just made him furious. Inside, he finds a short sword, yet the attacker mocks Unil's tiny weapon and doubts he can fight, only to be distracted until the cool guy from before appears behind him and slashes him down, then bragging that he didn't need thanks because his own distraction was the perfect way to take down the enemy. As Unil talks, he stays focused on his work and keeps ignoring the other guy. The guy sees Unil knows nothing about fighting and thinks he is an easy target. While staring hard at Unul, a guy jumps out from behind to attack, but he slices the attacker down with ease, proving he can see right out of the corner of his eyes. Hai then asks Jack about the cool dude because he is holding a special sword, known as the Extermination Sword. He wants to know why he holds the legacy sword of the Black Soul, a blade wielded by the strongest wanderer swordsman in history. Jingok tells us the man's name is Nung Wang, and says people report he found a Black Soul's secret manual hidden with his sword. Wang studied the manual and became the only one left to follow Black Soul's path. Jing thinks Wang might not have enough strength, but he's still the favorite to win because nobody else looks like they could beat him. But Jingok thinks things might turn out differently if something unexpected happens. Once the chaos finally quiets down, Wang and Unil are the only two left, and Wang is stunned that Unil made it all the way to the finish. Wang brags to Unil that killing him would make him one of the 10 demon masters, so he can't wait to get his hands on him. Even though Uniel faces what looks like the arena's strongest fighter, he stands calm with his usual icy look because he already knows the guy's weakness. Uniel grips his short sword with the sure belief that he can win this fight. Wong swings his sword at Uniel with a flurry of slashes, but to everyone's surprise, Uniel manages to dodge every single one without getting hurt. High up and watching from a distance, Hai and Jack see that even though Uniel looks like he's taking a beating, he's actually twisting his body at just the right moment to dodge every fatal blow. Jingak suddenly realizes that Uniel has learned how to fight by studying the patterns she found in the bodies Wu Gang left behind. Jing was stunned by how well Uniel could see everything. Uniel taunts Wang by calling his sword skills useless since he's only been slicing flesh without causing real harm. Jing sees that Uniel is picking a fight with Wang, but he's terrified he won't be able to strike back hard enough to end it. Yuno's trick succeeds, and Wang, furious, charges at him to end it all. As Wang charges at Uniel, Uniel realizes he only has one shot and quickly decides what to do. Using the clues he found in the dead bodies, he saw that Wang's instinctive finishing blow always targets the heart and head, so Uniel has already made his own plan ready. Just as Wang's sword is about to hit him, Uniel quickly bows to dodge, leaving Wang wide open to counterattack. His grandfather once warned him that a tiny spot in the neck, known to every martial artist as a weakness, can bring any skilled fighter to their knees if a child strikes it with just enough force to hit the mark. Yunol aims right for that spot, and Wang doesn't see it coming until his own sword becomes a doorway for Yunol's blade to strike him. With no chance to move, Wang's neck is severed by Unchol's short sword and his blood pours out. At last, Wu Gang's body hits the ground hard, and Yunol is the only one left standing. Jing and Haiyok freeze in shock, realizing this is the surprise Jingok warned about all along. I was crushed when Wugong fell to Unyil, especially since I had such high hopes for him after he mastered the deadly black soul sword arts. Even though he didn't want to, Hyuk had to admit that Uniel won the second trial. Suddenly, Uniel finds himself alone in an empty space, watching his grandfather stand far away in the distance. Unil rushes happily toward his grandfather, but his smile vanishes when he sees the old man has no eyes, and the old man frantically shouts that he can't see him, which hits Unil like a cold shock of truth. Suddenly, Uniel snaps out of it and finds himself on a ship. He realized he had fainted from blood loss and suffered fatal wounds with no pain, which meant a powerful healer from the demonic palace must have treated him. He realizes the well-trained men on the ship are the survivors of the first trial, and just then a hatch opens above them as Jingok arrives to tell them they've reached their destination, Hell Island, for the next trial. Gengak shouts at the candidates to follow him into a cave block for their new homes, ordering them to swap out their old gear for the new clothes and swords waiting inside before stepping forward. It seems they get to choose the cave that feels right for them. Before long, Uniel spots what looks like the perfect place to stay. Meanwhile, two guys are arguing about who gets to pick a spot, each insisting they have the right to it. Soon a stranger arrives to tell them to stop squabbling over the caves and pick any of the many other great spots instead, while Uniel secretly laughs at how unaware the candidates are of what happened in the second trial and how easily they've let their guard down. Uniel realizes that most of them are dressed in expensive clothes, which means they probably all belong to powerful clans. Uniel finally sees that the second trial was just a way to test who could be killed. As he stood there checking things out, Jingok stepped up from behind and teased him for moving so slow and not picking a cave yet. Jingok has been watching Uniel since the last trial, eagerly waiting to see which cave she chooses. He pushes him to hurry and points to a tiny opening in the cave. As mud oozes from the dark cave entrance, one of the candidates sneers at him, mocking his choice of a lair that fits his station perfectly. On the other hand, Jingok is so impressed that he thinks Onil is nothing short of a genius for making that choice. The cave looks tiny at the entrance, but the inside is huge enough for training, and that narrow opening keeps intruders out and scares most people away. Jing feels happy that Uniel saw everything perfectly. Soon, the candidates climb out of the dark caves in their black robes and come together to listen to Jing's words. Jing says Hell Island holds 10 martial arts halls, where each one teaches a unique demonic sex technique. It seems they can pick up every skill they like or just master one. Plus, they can call the shots on their own time, choosing to sleep, play, train, or do whatever they please. Daniel is stunned by this news since the second trial was nothing but a living nightmare, and he can't believe they let them be left alone to do whatever they wanted. The candidates jump straight into arguing over which art to learn first. Most people believe the Fire Rain Sword and the martial arts of sex are the best choice because they are thought to be the strongest. Yunil watches as everyone rushes toward the Fire Rain building, the sect known for being the toughest. Anil agrees that the Fire Rain is amazing, but he doubts it will help him since he has never learned martial arts before. He didn't waste a second deciding which martial art to use. Angel steps toward the ragged, wandering beast pavilion. It seems the sect has slowly fallen apart over the years and now barely holds a spot among the 10 great demon sects. They keep their top spot today simply because they have a long history of sending out mighty martial artists. Anil recalls his grandfather's story about sects, but then he suddenly sees the ground moving and a head popping up right before his eyes. The guy asks if he came to the building hoping to become one of the 10 demon masters, only to learn that he is actually the master of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Sao finally gathers his courage and tells Sao that he has come to learn the martial arts of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Sao glances at Uniel and sees how weak his body has become. He decided to send Uniel away and warn Yunsil that he's too weak to survive the training. An tries to plead his case by telling Sawu he can survive anything if he learns the martial arts of the Wandering Beast Pavilion, which shocks Sawu because those legendary skills are about to go extinct. Even though Uniel is a genius, Sawu warns him that their fighting style is so hard it could kill him within a day. He wants Uniel to go, but Uniel surprises everyone by bowing to Sawu and thanking him for teaching his martial arts. This convinces Sawu that he's up against a crazy man, so he finally agrees to become Uniel's master. But Sawu tells Uniel he's only teaching him because the Demon Palace ordered it. Saw finally emerged from the earth and told Uniel to start calling him Master Sa. Uniel tries to introduce himself, but Sawu cuts him off coldly, reminding him that he's nothing more than trainee number 1. Safu says they should start the training right away without any delay and raises his hand in a strange finger gesture. Unsol is suddenly struck by a powerful wave, and before he knows it, he finds himself unable to see. Before he loses his cool, Sawu calms him by saying he only blocked his sight for a moment using a secret trick from the sect. Safu insists that mastering this wandering beast path, the core skill of the sect, is absolutely necessary to learn. Uniel is still stunned by what he just saw and heard, so Baso tells him that the wandering beast path is designed to sharpen his senses and give him reflexes like a beast's. Sawu explains that this martial arts style is different because it changes based on who learns it, making the basic wandering beast path so tough that only a few can ever master it. But Sawu tells Uniel that if he can learn this, he will earn the senses of a wandering beast. The beast Sawu smirks and jokes that most people end up dead before they ever reach this moment. He then tells Uniel he'll be back in an hour and pushes her to get used to living without sight by then. After Saul's left, Uniel realized he was mistaken because his other senses didn't get sharper like he expected after losing his sight. He recalls Sawu saying the return trip would take an hour, and he realizes that feels like a very long time on his journey. He realizes he must shift his strategy right now, or if an enemy catches him off guard in this contest, he loses everything. Uniel instantly pictures himself being caught off guard, sending a rush of fear and energy through his body that drives him to leap from point A to point B. But Uniel loses, and he realizes that keeping his balance steady is now his most important job since he can't see. An hour later, Sawu comes back, hoping to find Uniel running around in fear. To his huge surprise, he sees Uniel jumping all over the place, something that is very unusual. Dafu notices that Uniel is fighting an imaginary foe, which explains why he has gotten used to not being able to see so fast. But Sawu isn't impressed, so he decides to test Uniel. He swings his sword at him, daring him to dodge. Sparring goes on, and 3 days later, Uniel ends up getting knocked down over and over again by Sawu. Sawu is shocked that Uniel isn't arguing about his training anymore, just accepting it instead. Safu then asks Uniel why he stays quiet instead of questioning his training. Uniel explains that Sawu believes the Wandering Night Pavilion's martial arts are about finding enlightenment, and that is why he feels every action he takes has a purpose. Safu is amazed by Uniel's answer and admits he was actually right all along. Next, he proposes they keep training, and when Sawu lunges at Uniel, Uniel's instincts suddenly wake up, letting him feel Sawu's approach. He sees the blow coming, knows he can't dodge it, so his only choice is to stand firm and block. Just as the attack is about to land, Uniel flashes his sword and blocks Sawu's strike, shocking Sawu to his core since he never thought Uniel could do that after only 3 days. Even though Uniel blocked the hit hard enough to stop it, the force of the attack still knocked him off his feet. Stunnedly, Sahu hurls a bamboo bottle at him and yells, "Drink this." Uniel takes a sip thinking it's water, only to find out it's not, and suddenly a rush of energy floods his body like his missing nutrients are instantly being refilled. It turns out the liquid is the holy spring water Sawu had saved his entire life for. Even though Sawu gave it away, he's not worried it was wasted. He's convinced he's finally found the once-in-a-lifetime genius he's been dreaming about his whole life. Once he was strong again, the training started all over, and they fought each other with huge energy. After swinging at them for a few minutes, Sawu suddenly stopped and burst out laughing, finally finding what he'd been looking for all along. Suddenly, Uniel finds his sight returning, and Sawu speaks with honest words, begging him to leave the path of the 10 demon masters and join the sect as a proper disciple instead. Agrees he will turn him into one of the 10 strongest demon masters in just a decade. When Uniel hears this, he is so tempted by the offer that he doesn't believe Sawu is lying. Then he remembers that the man who killed his grandfather is a master fighter. So Uniel knows he won't be happy with only learning the Wandering Beast Pavilion's fighting moves. Then he humbly turns down the offer, telling Sawu that he wants to become a demon master. Sevu then tells him to forget about learning the 10 demonic sect's martial arts, because even a talented genius like the Grand Heavenly Demon Emperor couldn't master them. Zawu explains that each fighting style fits a specific body type and energy, so Unseal warns that even the most talented can only master 2 or 3 arts, making it best to focus on just one if you want to become the strongest in the demonic faction. Despite all of Uniel's preaching, he won't change his mind, so Zawu has to back down. Although he's disappointed, he tells Uniel he's going to teach him a brand new martial art. Uniel is shocked to learn that the Wandering Beast sect's arts aren't taught step by step or through theory, but only after Zawu explains that the basics are just the very beginning. Zawu also tells Uniel that he has been training in his sect's wild beast path. That's when Uniel finally realizes that every strike Zawu made was just a copy of the wild beast path. Uniel is so thankful he bows to Zawu, but Zawu tells him to stop since he was just following orders from the demon palace. Onilo insists he can never forget the elixir Zawu gave him, but Saul is urging him to let it go. Zawu says this is how the Jangu works and admits it would be so much better if he could just let go of all the favors and grudges. Once everything was settled, Uniel knelt to bow to Zawu before finally walking away. Zawu stares in shock and deep respect as he walks away, lost in wonder at where such a treasure came from. As Uniel walks through the forest, he suddenly realizes he can feel everything happening all around him, and he wonders if this change is because he has learned the wild beast path. Uniel realizes he must find a way to stop the exhaustion, or he'll never get any real rest if it goes on like this. Right then, he squeezes his mind shut and shuts off his senses as hard as he can. He manages to finish the task, noticing a sharp divide between what looks normal and what his heightened senses reveal. Uniel quickly pulls out his map to figure out his next lesson. He suddenly realizes the training is happening fast and he has to hurry before time runs out. After thinking hard, he realizes he must find the demonic sect boss, the guy who stood toe-to-toe with the great heavenly demon emperor 700 years ago. Talking about it, he is the founder of the Fire Rain Sword sect, and since time is running out, Unul decides the strongest of the 10 demonic sects is his only hope, and when he arrives at the building he finds it much more exclusive than the Wandering Beast Pavilion's martial hall. So he knocks on the door, and the instructor inside wonders who it is, until Instructor Zheng opens it and is shocked to see Unul standing right there. Unil bowed to him, saying he'd come to learn the Fire Rain Sword sect's martial arts, but Unil was shocked when he realized Zheng was already a master of that very sect. King tells Uniel to follow him, explaining that the earlier candidates have already finished the first stage and moved on to the next, and that the whole challenge is split into 3 levels, the beginning, middle, and hardest parts. Jing questions why he only joined the Fire Rain sect after 2 weeks, and Uniel explains he spent that time mastering martial arts at the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Jiang can't believe that Uniel truly mastered the wild beast path in just 2 weeks, so he assumes Sawa must have sent him away after he couldn't handle the pressure. When they finally step into the training hall, Jing grows serious, introduces himself as the judge of the beginner trial, and gently warns Uniel that leaving for another hall might be better since the Fire Rain sword art is too hard for him to truly master. Uniel smiles and tells Jingak that while he's glad he's been worried, his heart belongs to the fiery sword arts of the Fire Rain sword sect. Since that's how it is, Jingok slams his foot down and a training manual pops up beside him, which he tells Uniel is the basic guide to mastering all 13 fire rains. He pushes him to read the instructions and practice hard. But Onel is lost, staring at a giant note covered in scribbles that make no sense and leave him wondering what on earth he's supposed to do. Gak is stunned by the news and immediately asks Uniel if he can learn to read a sword manual. Yuno then drops a shocking truth: he actually can't do it because until the competition he never learned a single thing about swordsmanship. That answer sends shivers down Jingak's spine, leaving him completely stunned. Jing is forced to ask again, and Uniel confirms he truly knew nothing about fighting before. Jungok isn't disappointed but instead impressed, seeing that with proper training, Uniel's current talents will make him exceptional. Jingok asks Uniel if he can read without seeing or following the sword steps, and Uniel answers yes. Uniel then reads the instructions in the manual that must be followed before practicing the moves. Uniel tries to follow the guide, but ends up causing a mess that leaves Jingok so shocked he can't believe the boy is about to learn how to move properly in a place where they must choose one of the 10 demon masters. Jing steps up to Uniel, guides him into the right stance, teaches him how to relax so his center stays loose, and then instantly explains it all. Uniel straightens his back, and Jingok is truly impressed that he understood everything without any fuss. Now that Jingok has set his posture, he tells Uniel without a second's delay that he will teach him the 13 forms of the Fire Rain. He tosses him a sword and begins teaching him the sharp, precise movements needed, while Uniel, as always, picks up every trick Jungkook shows him with perfect ease. Jing watches in total amazement, finally accepting that Uniel is truly talented. After training, Jingok asks him to pretend an enemy is right in front of him and use the Fire Rain's 13 forms, leaving Uniel confused about why they need to make up a fake opponent. Jing tells him that passing this test, which checks the spirit behind his simple moves, is the only way to get into the intermediate hall. The instant Uniel hears this, he knows he finally has a rare shot to prove himself, and he must seize it right now before it slips away. Just as he guessed, the enemy he imagines is the very man who killed his grandfather. He drew his blade and unleashed the first shape of the fire rain, striking with 13 forms of sharp accuracy and wild rage. Jingok is completely stunned as he watches Uniel glide with the sword, executing moves with such skill. As Uniel keeps moving through the 13 forms, Jingok quickly spots a change in the fire rain technique. Usually soft and spirited, but Uniel wields this sword technique with a sharp, unexpected bite. Jing can't believe his eyes because changing the basic moves of a sword technique is something only a grandmaster can do. Jingok sees that the sword moves are filled with such scary killing intent that he feels like he's fighting someone who has deeply hurt him. Jingok refuses to accept that the Fire Rain sect's sacred sword techniques are being treated like nothing, and this shock makes him realize he must have had a very strange childhood. Soon enough, he realizes he is already changing the 13 forms of the Fire Rain sect. He wonders if the wild beast path is to blame, and though he'd love to mix the two fighting styles, he realizes that would just create a completely new sword art instead of the Fire Rain 13 forms. Thinking on that, he swiftly shifts back to the natural Fire Rain of 13 forms. This time, he looks scarier than ever before. He closes his eyes to picture his target, then lets loose every bit of anger he has inside. Jing stares in awe, realizing that Uniel is truly lightning quick. As Uniel steps closer to his mark, he melts into the moment, realizing he can't let his target slip away, and so he chose to throw every last trick he had into a single desperate move. Sol unleashes his full fury, with a series of deadly cuts to bring his enemy down. But he moves so wildly that he loses his balance and grip on his sword. Jing watches Uniel lose the fight, and instead of getting angry, he feels truly impressed. Uniel is stunned when Jing tells him he passed the test. Jing tells him that the true test is how well he understands the sword and can use the Fire Rain 13 forms in a real fight. Jingak helps Uniel lift his sword and tells him he has passed the test. Jing tells Onel that his Fire Rain technique is truly amazing and urges him to head straight to the intermediate chamber. On is deeply thankful to Jingak for teaching him swordsmanship from scratch, knowing how annoying and stressful it must have been. Uniel bows to Jingak, showing his thanks for everything he has done so far. Jingak urged Uniel to keep pushing, and noted that his sword was already humming with intense killing intent. Before he leaves, Jingok tells Uniel one last thing: don't let the desire for revenge make you forget who you are. As they say their goodbyes, Jingok finally realizes that Uniel must have a truly incredible talent for learning, having mastered the wild beast path in just 2 weeks. Gifty zipping through to the intermediate chamber even faster than Jingok ever thought possible. Jing started doubting if Uniel could even reach the next chamber, but after training together, he knows for sure Uniel can make it, and he also believes the instructor, Qian Wugang, will become completely obsessed with him once they spend time together. Uniel steps into the middle room, but the instructor waves him away with a cold hand, telling Uniel to scram because they've had their fill. Qian acts cold because he isn't impressed that Uniel just passed the first test after weeks of training, saying one has no chance in the next round with the talent he has. One tries to explain to Qian that he was late because he was spending time training at the Wandering Beast Pavilion. When Qian heard this, he wasn't impressed, thinking Uniel must have just escaped the beast training thanks to how tough it was. But since Uniel passed the easy test, Qian had no choice but to tell him to sit down with the other candidates. Qian keeps teaching, warning the candidates that the thundering sword they're about to learn relies on fast movements and will hurt them if they can't master it, just like the difficult Fire Rain forms. Even so, they must learn it because it is a fundamental martial art where the real goal is to sharpen their sword skills, not to win. Qian steps up, calls forward the candidate Bio Hansung, and tells him to pick a challenger for their match. Biok flashed a wicked grin before asking if he could pick anyone he wanted, and Qian gave him the green light. As expected, Biok turns his attention to Uniel, declaring that he demands him as his opponent. Qian tries to argue, but Biok just reminds him that he was already told he could choose anyone. Qian keeps arguing against the plan and begs Biok to change the test partner, but Uniel jumps in and tells the instructor he's okay with it. Qian is stunned by the news, so Uniel reveals that Qian learned sword skills from Jingak and suggests he will improve faster by practicing against people. Qian thinks Uniel is just trying to save face, but he won't stop him anyway. Qian nods and waves them forward toward the advanced chamber, while Bei grins like a wolf in sheep's clothing, dreaming of crushing the rookie Uniel to prove his skills to the whole class. Then they grab wooden swords to get ready for the fight. Bio praises Uniel's courage, but warns him that bravery alone won't keep him alive in the murmur. Baek charges straight at Uniel without hesitation, but Uniel slips away with ease. Baek looks amazed, but thinks Uniel won't be able to keep going for long. He attacks once more, making Qian block the strike with his sword since dodging is no longer an option. Baek sees that Qian's clumsy sword swings prove he is a total beginner, which makes Baek feel even more thrilled. Bei keeps playing with Qian and even lets loose a thunderous sword move. Uniel stays cool and smooth, slipping past every attack Baek throws at him. Chan watches as the frustration starts to build up. He realizes Bei isn't skilled with his blade, yet Uniel dodges every attack as if he can already see Byok's next move. Chan begins to believe that Uniel has truly mastered the wild beast path, even though a martial artist like him knows how incredibly hard it is to learn, especially when a mere master usually needs years while Uniel only took 2 weeks. Chan suddenly makes the whole thing serious, telling Uniel that this duel isn't just about dodging but also about showing off their sword skills and testing their reflexes while he watches. When he hears this, one gets serious and chases Bio with all 13 forms of his fire rain. Byok feels no danger from the trick because it looks a little different from the 13 known forms. He's so sure he can easily sidestep that slash without even trying. But he quickly realizes he might be wrong since the sword technique hits him so hard that he begins to struggle. Bio's mind races with doubts, wondering if Uniel is just using one of the 13 forms to mock him on purpose. He also wonders if Uniel is trying to catch the instructor's eye just so he can be bumped up to the advanced room without asking. Seeing that he's heading for a shameful defeat, Bio makes a quick choice to switch to the Asura sword style. He lands a devastating blow that splinters the air, hoping to finally end Onul's life with a deadly technique from the Asura sword sect. Since Kion didn't limit which sword styles were allowed, he couldn't stop the fight from happening. Kion sees that even though Uniel faces a fierce fighting style, he keeps his balance steady. Uniel still can't bring himself to believe the wild beast path is working, so he keeps dodging Byok's furious counterattack, the deadly bloody wind-warping moon, until even Shan watches in horror as Byok leaps toward Uniel, only for everything to blur in a flash until Uniel's fire rain sword thrust is already pressing against Byok's chest, leaving Onio to look cool as he sheaths his blade while the wounded Byok collapses in a pool of blood. All eyes widen in shock and horror as everyone struggles to believe Bio might actually be gone. On walks away to return his training sword, while Chan stands over Bio's lifeless form to confirm that the fatal blow has truly taken him. Jun turns to Uniel and asks if he has always followed the Wandering Knight Pavilion, but Uniel shakes his head and says no. Chion pushes him to admit if he really learned the wild beast path in just 2 weeks, but Uniel admits he barely scratched the surface. Chion looks away in disgust, unable to believe what he just saw could be anything normal. Teases Uniel about whether he's been taught how to learn, but Uniel tries to defend himself until Cheon interrupts him and orders him to clean up the mess he made. The candidates grumble that Uniel should be punished for killing his sparring partner, but Xion stops them and warns that on Hell Island, using a deadly technique means you must expect the same against you. Remembering this, Xion starts the training all over again, and the candidates jump into a fierce sparring match. Xion dismisses everyone who lost in the sparring match, telling them they have failed the trial. He tells them they're all free to find a new martial hall since their time at the Fire Rain sect is over. The losers begged for another try, but Xian shook his head and said there are no more chances left. Xian thinks they might have passed the first trial because they were strong enough, but to master the Fire Rain sword they will need to find the hidden talent to push past their own limits. Since they couldn't push past their own limits, they failed. Once everyone else had left the hall, Xian noticed Uniel was still there and asked him why he was staying behind. Confused, Uniel asks Chan if he has to leave too, and Xian nods and says yes. He tells him that he has won and earned the right to step into the advanced chamber. But Uniel tells Khan he'd rather stay in the middle room. Shin looks puzzled and asks Uniel why he'd do that, only for Uniel to explain that he knows nothing but the 13 Fire Rain forms and hasn't learned anything else yet in the intermediate chamber. Xian is shocked that Oniel mastered the wild beast path to dodge Bio and Kek's attack, even though Oniel insists he knows nothing of it. Uniel stands firm without a sorry bone in him, insisting he has yet to learn anything. Seeing that Uniel refuses to quit, Qian has no choice but to agree to teach him the Fire Rain Thundering Sword, a powerful upgrade to the Fire Rain 13 forms. He makes sure Uniel knows that he gets annoyed when people try to pull tricks on him just to stand out. He warns Uniel that he will behead him if he learns any sword move other than the Fire Rain 13, and 4 days later, after Chan confirms through hard training that Uniel still lacks the basics, the threat remains hanging over them. Even though he is only just learning how to use the sword, his fierce determination and sharp focus are truly remarkable. Xion could see the fierce determination burning in Uniel's eyes, as if he were ready to give his life just to learn martial arts. Xion finally figured out how Uniel managed to master the wild beast path in just 2 weeks. Uniel has already unleashed his thundering sword, proving just how fast he can learn. While Insol pushes forward with his usual intensity, Xion yells for him to stop and reveals that he has finally mastered the Fire Rain Thundering Sword, a technique that spins the body to chain together multiple moves, though Xion warns that this flashy style might not hold up in a real fight. Kaon sees that Uniel is using every trick he knows as if he's trying to take a life. Uniel feels lost because he thinks sword skills are meant for real fights. Xian admits that killing intent is essential for demonic arts, yet when striving for a higher realm, the Fire Rain sword must let go of that killing side. Xian warns Onolil that if he doesn't clear the murderous rage from his mind, he'll accidentally create a fighting style that ends up hurting him instead. Ronald finally realized that Qian was practically repeating what Zheng had told him. Qian admits that he once let his desire to kill rule him, forcing him to slaughter anyone who got in his way. But this cost him his honor and pride, causing his great skill to crumble away. Qian warns that these deadly tricks might seem like a gateway to greatness, but are actually just roadblocks to true swordsmanship. So like a father speaking to his son, he tells Yuniel he must finally let go of his killing intent. Just as he hears this, Yuniel suddenly recalls the advice his grandfather once gave about those who carry swords. His grandfather once warned him that sword wielders carry a history heavy with sadness and bad luck, which is why the people of Mim never like talking about the past. Aniel asks Chan why he's sharing all this, and Chan explains he wants Aniel to remember that he too once lived with killing intent. Tian then reaches out to Yuniel and gently asks him what his name is. And when he finally tells him, the truth hits him. He is the one who actually survived the second trial Jingak spoke of.
Bozkard warns Yuniel that he's in big trouble.
When Yuniel asks what it is, Qian tells him that he doesn't even know the basics of fighting. Qian tells him that his rivals have been practicing martial arts since they were just children. Qian warns that stepping into the advanced chamber to master the Fire Rain sword will only push him further away. Jen warns Yuniel that he must quickly learn the basics of martial arts so he has a strong foundation for mastering the Fire Rain sword. Because of this, Qian decides to teach Aniel his own special lightning and thunder power. Before they start, he warns Yuniel that his fingers are now useless because he failed the dangerous training, which could also make Yuniel lose control of his arms and prevent him from entering the advanced chamber. So Chan asks if Yuniel still wants to proceed. Yuniel nods instantly without a second thought, happy to trade his soul and even his arms as long as he gets his revenge. A month later, Aniel finally mastered the unstoppable lightning and thunder skills and was free to leave the intermediate chamber, even though Yuniel thought he took too long to learn them despite Qian saying he was fast. Now that he has mastered those tricks, it's time to move on to the next big challenge. As soon as he steps into the advanced chamber, everyone stops and stares at him, and Yuniel feels the trainees suddenly growing fierce because they know exactly what he is capable of. Yuniel can't believe that people think less of undertakers while they hold killers in such high regard. The instructor insists Yuniel take his seat right now because the lesson is about to start. Since a new trainee has joined the group, the instructor steps up to share the secrets of the Rain Sword and the 7 teachings. He begins by teaching them that they must learn to balance every part of their body to stand with rock-like confidence. After staring at the note for a minute, Yuniel suddenly realizes he could never have made sense of its words without the advanced martial arts he learned in the intermediate chamber. Once the instructor finishes teaching for the day, he asks Aniel to follow him. The instructor then leads Yuniel back to the garden hidden behind the room. He points out that there are times when you can beat an armed enemy without ever drawing your sword. He tells the person they no longer need the sword to practice sword arts. The instructor suddenly pulls out a branch and points it straight at Yuniel before asking him an important question. He asks him what he'd do if he were suddenly attacked without a sword in hand. The instructor explains that while he was busy in the middle room, his team has already mastered the glowing secret of the Fire Rain sword's first form, which is why they are now talking about the theory. The instructor tells Yuniel that if he can't understand what's being asked, he'll never learn, so he urges him to answer carefully since his whole career depends on it. Yuniel takes a deep breath and replies that if he lacks a sword, he'll just use his opponent's. Without slowing down, he lunges for the branch, but before his fingers can touch a leaf, the instructor vanishes and suddenly pops up right behind him. The instructor snaps at Yuniel for rushing his answer. While Yuniel ignores the instructor's words, he's too busy wondering when the man came up behind him. Yuniel tries chasing the instructor again, but nothing changes. Aniel quickly gets annoyed because he can't guess where the instructor will go next. Aniel didn't think he'd be so easily caught, yet he couldn't believe he couldn't keep up with the other guy's moves at all. Aniel is scared because he knows he'll fail the advanced chamber unless he impresses the instructor right now. Aniel finally decides to unleash the full power of the wild beast path, risking it just one time. He dives for the branch, but right as he reaches out, a sudden push from the instructor knocks him flying backward. Aniel hits the ground in total disappointment, but before he can sink into his own failure, the instructor rushes over to pat him on the shoulder. The instructor burst out laughing before announcing that he had passed the test. Yuniel is stunned and confused because he couldn't even touch the old man, so he doesn't understand how he passed the test. The instructor walks right past his question to announce that he'll master the Shining Mystique technique starting tomorrow, shouting at him to show up early, even before his friends arrive. Aniel feels happy to hear the news, gives the instructor a grateful thanks for his kindness, and then heads off. As he walked away, the instructor watched the leaves fall from the branch he held, secretly having flown Yuniel away to hide the fact that Yuniel had actually succeeded. The instructor is so impressed that he knows Yuniel is going to do something amazing. Later, Yuniel walks through the woods and decides to share his key instead of resting, because a fight could happen at any moment. He feels more than one person standing behind him and quickly counts them using his sharp instincts. Soon, 5 guys show up behind him, and they all look ready to fight. They tell Uniel that his arrogant behavior since the middle chamber is going to get him a real lesson. The 5 brag that they're the 5 peak swords because their genius is sent to kill him. Instead of wasting time arguing with the 5, Uniel keeps his sharp senses active and soon realizes someone else is hiding in the shadows. Right as the 5 of them are getting ready to strike, a scary guy jumps out from behind and knocks out their boss. He hits the floor with a single blow, and that sends a chill of fear running down the spines of everyone else. They spin around to find their attacker is Seojinya, a mighty trainee. Jenna walks past the other 4 and steps up to Uniel, saying they need to have a serious talk. The 4 catch his attention by asking why he's there, but Seojinya just tells them to get lost because he has nothing to do with them. The 4 grab their final companion, sprint away, and vow to get revenge on Uniel. Uniel couldn't doubt it. Jinha was strong. After making sure the 4 are gone, Jinha turns to Uniel to ask a question that seems really important. He thrusts his sword forward and demands to know who he is, leaving Uniel completely puzzled. Earlier that morning, the teacher called Uniel up to show off his move. Uniel gripped his sword, sucked in a deep breath, and then swung it with perfect precision. After swinging for a couple of minutes, he finally stops to reveal the clear-cut marks left in the ground by his powerful move. Even the instructor is amazed because Uniel has soaked the technique in a deadly killing intent. Once the instructor finishes showing off his skills, he calls the next person up, who happens to be Seojinya. As he steps onto the stage, he walks right past Uniel, his presence looking absolutely terrifying. Just as Uniel finishes his flashy move, Jinha instantly swaps his fire rain sword trick with a perfect counter that shuts it down completely. Uniel knew that look was a warning. Now that Uniel stands face to face with Jinha, he asks, "Who are you saying you are?" Jinha yells at Uniel, convinced he's just pretending not to understand the question. Jinha admits he knows many people aren't on the island because they don't want to become a demon master, and the moment Uniel hears this, he finally understands the truth. He saw the chance to master the 10 evil arts as incredible, yet the whole thing felt rushed and done all wrong. He realizes the chance he sees is actually a clever trap waiting to catch something. Uniel speaks in a calm and honest tone, asking Jinha if a spy is hiding on the island. Jinha could tell Uniel was telling the truth just by the way he asked. Jinha unsheathed her sword and declared that Uniel was not the one he was seeking. Before he leaves, Jinha warns Uniel to stop causing trouble or he might just kill him. Once Jinha is gone, Uniel sees that far more is happening underneath the surface than he ever imagined. Uniel finally realizes that missing some things was okay because he had been focusing only on training. Uniel pushes all distractions away, knowing he'll fight whoever stands in his way, and soon his instructor announces that the training is finally over. He shares a final encouraging speech, and then wishes them good luck on their journey through the Murim. Suddenly the bell rang, and while the trainees were confused, the instructor sent them to the stone mountain in the island's center, and once everyone had gathered, he announced that it was finally time to start the 3rd trial. Most trainees look confused when the head instructor mentions the 3rd trial, since they were all waiting to hear about the 2nd one. Uniel alone knows the true situation, so Jingok tells the trainees that their living quarters will soon shut down until they can find all 10 demon masters. He shouts for them to grab whatever they need from the caves before they shut them up. One trainee asks how the 10 demon masters will be chosen, only to have the head instructor express his disappointment that they've been on the island this long without realizing they're expected to kill each other. Kalk tells them to fight until only 10 of them are left. He tells them they can do whatever they want, even run or hide, but he makes sure they know there's a cost to it. It seems that soon they will shrink the safe zones for the trainees, and anyone caught wandering into the forbidden areas will be hunted down and killed by the demon monsters lurking behind him. The killer demons are a bunch of terrifying guys in capes, and just seeing them will make you wet your pants. Even Uniel begins to sweat from the sheer killing intent radiating by the killer demons, proving they are terrifying martial artists. Right then, one of the trainees looks to Hyok and asks if they're allowed to strike down the killer demons. Hai bursts out laughing at the thought that some candidates are reaching even higher than the others. Then he tells them they can fight the evil demons and even kill them if they want to. He announces that whoever can kill a killer demon will instantly become one of the 10 demon masters, turning the game into a thrilling adventure. The instant he spoke, the trainees realized that hunting down a deadly demon seemed way harder than just fighting a bunch of them. Then Hai tells the trainees they can team up or ambush each other using any trick they want to become one of the 10 demon masters, and once they're sent off with their gear, they spring into action. Uniel quickly put distance between himself and the others because he knew he had already drawn attention during their training, realizing he was about to be attacked just like the feared Peak 5 intended to do in the forest. He knows he must reach the wandering pavilion for safety, and when he gets there the ground feels strange compared to what he remembered. He drops to his knees to feel the ground shift beneath him, and in that moment he senses someone approaching. Timely, a guy being hunted by other trainees, jumps out from the bushes and begs Uniel to save him since they are trying to kill him. Uniel snatches up his sword, bracing himself to strike just in case this whole thing is a trap. But the guy promises Uniel that he'll pay him back if Uniel helps him get away from the chasers. O'Neill checks everything and sees that the guy's wounds look real, so he thinks the man might actually be telling the truth. O'Neill feels the three people chasing him behind him and wonders if they are working together or not. Even though O'Neill doesn't care about their plans, he can't risk showing himself because of the man they are chasing, so he has no choice but to hide both himself and the guy in a secret underground pouch around the pavilion. Suddenly, the three chasers burst through the door, only to find an empty room, and panic sets in as they have absolutely no idea where their target went. They wander around the pavilion looking for their target, unaware that he is hiding right beneath them, so when they finally give up and leave, it is because they can't find him. Once O'Neill is sure the attackers have left, he and his cautious partner finally step out from their hiding spot. The man felt thankful to be alive and thanked O'Neill for his help, while O'Neill carefully checked everything that was happening. O'Neill realizes that Sawa must have dug a fresh set of hiding spots for him. As he hid, he felt the wild beast's path stretching out beyond its usual limits. He could feel everything moving in the dirt as if he were watching it with his own eyes. He finally understands that Sa wanted to show him the way of the vibration. Finally, his conditional partner reveals he is Gimchung from the Blood Sect. Gim wants to know O'Neill's name, but O'Neill just ignores him. O'Neill can't quite settle down, so he gets up and heads off to his next spot. DM tells him to stop, but O'Neill asks if he can join for safety, and Gim agrees, saying O'Neill is trustworthy since he helped him escape before. O'Neill stays quiet, so Gim assumes he has given his silent yes. With excitement in his eyes, he chases after O'Neill like a stray dog until he finally becomes his partner. After a few minutes of walking, Anchal places his hand on the ground to feel the earth's vibrations. Thanks to this, he realizes a fight is happening up ahead and suggests they take a different path to stay safe, while Gum is amazed by what O'Neill can do and begs him to teach him the same skills. But our guy just turns a blind eye and keeps on his way. Suddenly, O'Neill overhears a fighter vowing to avenge his fallen friends. As soon as O'Neill hears this, a familiar chill runs through his whole body. He suddenly sees that the other guy is chasing revenge just as hard as he is. Guy sees something suddenly wrong with O'Neill and asks him what's going on. Just as he begins to speak again, O'Neill interrupts to say they're taking a detour, not to run away from the fight, but to jump right into it. As they get closer to the fight, a trainee hangs perfectly hidden on a tree branch. As soon as he spots O'Neill, he springs into action. O'Neill blocks the attack so easily that the other guy is shocked and frantically asks how he stopped a forbidden ultimate technique without even being an assassin. O'Neill ignores the question and slashes the attacker in half, joking that the technique would have been a real pain before he found the wild beast path, so now that the fight isn't over, he decides to help the trapped guy escape the assassins so he can finally teach him how it feels to get revenge. Right as they think they've won, O'Neill suddenly pops up and strikes them, catching them off guard so hard that his sharp attacks leave them no chance to fight back. Just as O'Neill stands there, an assassin leaps out from behind and nearly chops his head off, but O'Neill sidesteps the deadly blow right in time. Before he realizes it, O'Neill finds himself boxed in, though the crowd around him can't match his wild strength. He cuts them all down until there is only one guy left standing. Just as he gets ready to fight the other guy, the vengeful man trapped behind him steps out to kill the final assassin. After slaying the last assassin and finally tasting victory, he breaks into a huge grin, only to suddenly crash to the ground before O'Neill can even ask him anything. He whispers from the hiding bushes to ask if the fight is done. O'Neill turns away from him to bow beside the other guy and peek at him. This is the moment Gim drops the act and lunges to stab O'Neill from behind. But O'Neill isn't easily tricked, so he blocks the attack before it can even get close to him. Gwyn was shocked to see O'Neill block the attack, since he hadn't expected it at all. O'Neill shoves him backward, scolding him for stealing away his chance to finally ask the burning question he's been holding inside. Guy doesn't care about O'Neill's questions, but he is worried that O'Neill figured out his plan to betray him, and O'Neill reveals that he actually knew from the very beginning, while they were hiding underground, and realized that Gu was wearing a secret stash of weapons hidden under his clothes. On top of that, he couldn't move his body right because the weapon strapped to him made him feel like a stiff statue. He admits he kept Gume around just to satisfy his curiosity, hoping to learn if knowing how to lie would give him an advantage later on. Gim goes crazy when he hears it, convinced O'Neill is just talking nonsense because he thinks his own acting is perfect. He hurls his weapons at O'Neill, who blocks them all so easily that Gum finds his life much tougher. Fear began to crawl through him as he realized O'Neill might actually be able to guess his next move. Before he even realizes it, O'Neill's lightning-fast speed lets him close the distance instantly, landing a sharp slash on Gim's shoulder. O'Neill warns Gim that his secret weapons are only as good as his ability to stay hidden, or else they're just useless. Refusing to quit, Ga makes a final desperate dash at O'Neill, but O'Neill easily dodges him and slashes him down to death, only admitting after the fight that it was a tough battle that nearly broke him without his secret weapons. He spins around to see Ga's face, and it holds the same blank, dead look that most people have right before they pass away. On the other hand, the revenge dude wears a calm, finished smile on his face, and Uniel wonders if he'll look the same when he finally gets his revenge. Just before walking away, Uniel grabs the man's sword, giving him the thrilling chance to fight with two blades at once. Meanwhile, an unseen figure hides in the bushes and watches every move Uniel makes. They've watched him fight and seen just how dangerous he really is. The stranger admits Uniel is talented, but warns that without bettering his skills, he won't survive on the island. The next day, Uniel is hunted down by a group of trainees who want him dead. One was bleeding from many cuts, yet he sprints on because he sees the attackers aren't stopping. As he pushes forward to get ahead, he's also busy planning how to break free from his troubles. And meanwhile, the head instructor and Jingok keep an eye on everything from a high mountain peak. The head instructor asks for a report, and Jingok replies that only 41 of the 86 trainees are still alive. The head instructor beams with pride that 41 tough trainees have survived 3 grueling days, proving they are truly skilled. He then decides it's time to put their skills to the test. While Uniel binds his daggers together, he tosses the weapon backward to knock an attacker away and buys himself a moment, realizing he must leave the open field to gain the upper hand. Uniel sprints straight toward the Fire Rain Sect building, not knowing that the head instructor has just decided to make that exact spot the next place to be locked down. Uniel slips into the building without a scratch, leaving a bloody trail for his attackers to follow. The more they squeeze him into a cramped spot, convinced they've trapped him, but then he suddenly appears right behind them. He nearly chops the closest guy's head off, but he blocks the blow and shouts a warning to his friends that Uniel is right behind them. The guy proudly told Uniel that they aren't fools and wouldn't fall for such cheap tricks. As the two clash in a fierce fight, Uniel spots the enemy's sword moves and slips away from every strike with ease. The instant he slips past the attack, Uniel strikes with all his might, slicing the man's head clean off. The rest of the crew gets furious and charges at Uniel together, but they quickly realize that the cramped space is stopping them from fighting effectively. Uniel, however, feels right at home and actually loves getting squeezed into those tight spots. Once Uniel gains the upper hand, making life very difficult for his attackers. After thinking it over, Uniel sees that if he fights each enemy alone, he can take them all down. And when Uniel would tear them apart one by one of the attackers frantically hurls his whip, sending it bouncing off the wall. Uniel barely dodges the whip by leaping out of its path at the very last second. As the attackers realize they've pushed Uniel out of the tight spot, they scramble to flee, only to crash headlong into team leader, who is so furious that his crew is trying to run away from a fight. The crew argues they aren't fleeing but just moving to a better spot. The captain brushes aside their pleas, swings his weapon to sever their heads in a shower of blood, and then brags that he never wanted such low-quality crew members to sail with him. With the flies dealt with, Uniel now has to stand up to the team captain. He admits Uniel is skilled and introduces himself as Wu Munong, only to have Uniel ignore his name in favor of asking if he's the team's leader, a question that angers Wu until he coldly decides there's no point in exchanging names since Uniel is about to die at his hands. Wu slashes his whip at Uniel's sword, shattering at the moment Uniel tries to react, and then mocks him for only knowing one defense, finally making Uniel realize that the guy knows all his secret moves. Yet the mystery of how he knows still lingers, with Uniel wondering if Wu has a secret web of information she doesn't know about. Wu sees that Uniel is lost in his own thoughts, so he follows right after him. Uniel barely dodges Wu's strike, only to watch in awe as Wu wipes out everything his weapon touches. Realizing that Wu is unbeatable in a tight spot, Uniel turns and dashes toward the main hall. Uniel grabs his second sword to face Wu, but a quick strike from Wu knocks him backward. Wu steps out of the shadows, complaining that Uniel isn't fighting hard enough, then swings his whip and suddenly finds himself trapped by it. Wu laughs at Uniel and tells him that his time is almost up. Uniel discovers that his glowing aura can block Wu's attacks, but he still lacks the strength to push them back hard enough to stop them. Suddenly he realizes he needs a weapon strong enough to slice through steel, and though the whip tightens around Uniel, he quickly spots Uniel's clever trick and isn't worried because Uniel is just trying to use his own shine against him. His calm face suddenly freezes in horror as Uniel bursts through the opening with a golden glow and a thunderous strike, slipping past him before Wu can react and leaving him with a deadly wound he only feels after the attack is over. Life leaves his body, and Wu falls dead to the ground. Once Wu was gone, Uniel finally paid the price for his power, choking on blood as it came up. Even though Uniel knows the skill is powerful and tied to him, he can't use it freely because it's way too advanced for where he stands right now. Nonetheless, he's happy he won the fight and knows he must move fast because the restricted areas are about to change. Suddenly a dark feeling creeps up on him from behind. And when he turns around, he finds a terrifying demon staring down at him with all its monstrous power. Fear crawls through Uniel's body as he refuses to believe what his eyes are seeing. He finally realizes the restricted zones must have shifted while he was busy defeating his enemies, and now he wonders if he can sneak out without a fight since he wasn't forced into the danger zone by running away. He shifts his foot just a little as he watches the killer demon. Thinking that he doesn't respond, Yuniel thinks he's safe now. He wrongly thinks the killer demon is letting him off the hook, so he grabs that chance right away. He sprints right past the killer demon, but his wild instincts scream a warning just in time, letting him duck as a headless body flies through the air. He nearly wet himself when he realized he couldn't feel the killer demon move, and without his wild beast senses, he would have been dead. After realizing the calm-faced killer demon will strike the moment he moves, Yuniel recalls what Sau said about carnivores and herbivores. He discovered that moving in a zigzag pattern makes it very hard for predators to catch him. But the hunter still wins because the prey's moves become predictable, letting the predator catch and kill them. Since the killer demon could guess his moves, Yuniel lets out a loud scream, scrambles around in a crazy way to stay unpredictable, kicks his plan into action, and manages to dodge the demon, which really impresses the guy watching. Yuniel begins by moving in a familiar zigzag pattern. Just as the killer demon figures out the trick, Anil leaps into the wild beast path to dodge its strikes. Just as he prepares his final move, he suddenly feels the cold steel of a killer demon's sword against his neck, sweat pouring down his face as he realizes it's too late. But he is shocked when the killer demon suddenly stops and doesn't kill him right away. Yuniel glanced around and realized he'd already stepped into the forbidden zone. One pauses to think about what just happened, realizing that even though he gave everything he had, he still couldn't manage to make a single opening. As Yuniel turns to flee and finally grasps the harsh truth of being a mere frog in a well, he retreats to a safe distance, only to realize that the demon hunter he faced possessed skills just as deadly as his grandfather's. Unsolo realizes that if he wants any hope of survival, he must prove he is stronger than a killer demon. Suddenly he hears a voice behind him saying they've been looking for him, so he turns to see a man sitting on a rock staring at him and talking about the wild beast path that Yuniel learned. Yuniel listens and realizes everyone is already talking about him. He meant to introduce himself but changed his mind, claiming Yuniel was about to die, so there was no point in knowing his name. The dude lunges at Yuniel, who stays cool and slips away without trouble. The guy was stunned that Yuniel used his animal-like instincts to slip right past his attack. The man admits Yuniel will soon become a demon master, so he must kill him now, but as he changes his strike, a crucial thought finally reaches Yuniel, who quickly pushes it away before blocking the blow and feeling a strange shock travel through his body from the sword's impact. After a few more moves, Yuniel finally knows his suspicion was right. He remembers the time he and his grandfather stood by a dead body. His grandfather tells him the man was killed by the 5 tiger severing blades of the HB Fun clan. His grandfather noticed there were no cuts on the man's skin, yet his bones were all broken, a sign that the 5 tiger blades had transferred their deadly Qi directly into his body on contact. Recalling his grandfather's words, Yuniel speaks up to let the man know he has spotted him using the 5 tiger severing blades, a secret skill belonging to the HB clan. But the guy is stunned when he hears this and immediately starts asking Yuniel how he knows so much. It turns out that one of the most basic moves in their fighting style is a way to soak up energy using their inner power. It's like a swirling whirlpool that snatches everything in and twists their weapon out of their hands. As the enemy's weapon twists in their grip, they seize the moment to pull them right down. Back then, Yuniel was amazed by his grandfather's words and asked if the HB Fan clan was the strongest sect, only to hear that their dangerous technique would inevitably harm them too since they have to get so close to their enemies. Thinking hard, Yuniel decides to use that trick on his rival. Daniel sprints straight at the Fun dude, who finally gets ready to fight using their clan's special way. Fun talks about pulling up every single demon seedling before they can grow into powerful demon masters. Just as Yuniel is about to reach him, he plunges his sword into the ground, and while Fun thinks Yuniel must be crazy, he soon realizes he is on the wrong side when Yuniel dodges the attack and appears right beside him. Anil drives his knee hard into the man's stomach, sending him stumbling back in pain, then casually grabs his sword with a grin as his plan starts to click. But Anil knows his last move didn't hurt enough, so he stays calm, knowing his experienced opponent won't fall for any cheap tricks. But now he is happy, because he knows how to fight him back. As the man recalled his trainer's advice, he waited a split second to let his opponent strike first before striking back. Fun surprises himself by staying calm and matching the attack instead of panicking, and in a sudden twist, he barely misses Fun's head, causing Fun to realize too late that Yuniel is using his own power against him. Fun refuses to believe a kid like Anil could stop his powerful energy-absorbing move, which can even pull boulders from far away and stump expert swordsmen, so when Fun tries his attack again, he makes it even stronger. But he doesn't realize that he is actually making Yuniel's sword faster. Yuniel gains the advantage and swings at Fun, but Fun sidesteps the attack as planned, catching Yuniel off guard by dropping his energy shield and laughing that he doesn't need it to defeat someone like Yuniel before charging forward without a second. But this is exactly what Yuniel had been waiting for. Just as Fun steps closer, Yuniel swings the Fire Rain sword, its glowing blade slicing through the air to strike Fun down. Fun stands frozen in shock, just like Yuniel's other foes, staring at the incredible move he just witnessed. Turns out that Yuniel took the glowing shield meant for defense and turned it into a weapon for attack. To make it happen, he had to gamble that the other moves would turn against him. Even Fun has to admit that Unul is a genius for changing the attack, and as Unul starts working, Fun is shocked that Unilal lets him live, only for Unul to reveal he's not part of his revenge, and has no reason to kill him. Fun feels so glad to hear the news that he tells them they should never meet again. Just as Unul exits, a creepy figure steps out from behind Fun and reveals itself to be a killer demon, who tells Fun he's only been useful to the Orthodox sect for as long as he could. Fun can't believe the demon killer knows he's from the Orthodox sect, so the killer laughs at him for thinking the demon palace is weak, swings his sword, and cuts Fun down right then, while Xiaojinia fights a group of trainees from the hellish sect. As they fought, they poisoned him and drained 95% of his fight. His enemies made it clear that he was doomed unless he could get the antidote from them, knowing full well they would never give it to him. Xiao Jinha finally sees that going it alone wasn't the smartest move since the group he's facing is way too well planned. Refusing to give up, Jinha snatches his sword with his left hand to defend himself, only for one attacker to mock him by saying that a right-handed warrior like him can't suddenly become left-handed, and should just quit as they rush in to finish him. Jinia tries to hold his own, but to make it work, he gets hit by another poison needle again. With this, Jinha realizes he has only 10 minutes left to find the antidote or face the poison's deadly end. Jinja dropped his sword, giving up because he saw there was no point in fighting anymore and just waited for the enemies to attack him. Just as they tried to get to Jinha, one of them suddenly fell dead, and that's when they realized someone else was hiding nearby. Just as they are still trying to figure out what's happening, Uniel steps out from behind them looking scary and dangerous. His quick surprise attack lets him knock out the attackers with perfect accuracy, and soon he is the only one left standing in the field while their bodies lie around him. Gamer grips Xiaojina as he sees Uniel approaching and begs him to spare his life, insisting he poses no danger. Uniel simply walks right past him to rummage through one of the bodies lying on the ground. Uniel feels relieved the moment he spots the antidote, knowing it's exactly what he needs to fight the terrifying warrior from the Blood Castle. Just as he's ready to go, Xiao Jinha grabs him and says he's been poisoned and has less than 10 minutes left to take the antidote. Uniel spins around and speaks in a freezing voice, telling him his goal is to kill everyone, including Xiaojina, and explains that he hasn't cut him down yet only because he's already dead. Xiaojina finally sees that Uniel was right all along since he's just a rival who has to get out of the way. Desperate, Jinha tells Uniel he'll work with him if he can just give him the antidote. Then Unul asks him why he should help. Jinia tells Unul there are still about 20 trainees left, all working together, so even the strongest of them can't win alone, and he promises to share the group's secrets if Unul helps him. Jinia promises Yuno he'll never betray him if Yuno saves his life, and after thinking on it, Onyo realizes Xiaojina is the kind of person who never tricks or betrays others. Jinia also promises Uniel he'll stick by him until the very end and won't betray him. Finally, On agrees to help and tosses the antidote canister to Jinha so he can save himself. Jinya quickly sprinkles the powder on the spot just as the bell rings for another zone. The second Uniel hears the news, he urges Jinha to flee right away, shouting for him to use his brain even though Jinha is shocked they're still in the safe zone because Uniel knows that a new restriction in the safe area can only mean one thing. This means the rest of the group will soon gather right where they are. Before he can even finish speaking, the other groups appear and crowd around Jinha and Uniel. Uniel knows for sure that they are already late. As he checked out the new group, he spotted one guy who looked totally different from everyone else. He wears a red scarf tied in his hair, looking cold and untouchable. Because the group is made up of different factions, one of them immediately suggests killing Jinha before they decide what to do among themselves. It seems everyone in the group knows exactly who Jinha and Uniel are, and what special skills they use. Jinia knows they're in deep trouble, so he grabs the antidote bottle Uniel gave him earlier. With a clever move, he throws the powder at the group, shouting that it is deadly poison from the hellish blood castle. But powder leaves a purple dust that covers the entire area and leaves the group members.